Hello everyone. In this brief video, I'm going to present the three main steps of our cognitive process as described by Ian McGilchrist in The Master and His Emissary, and put them in relation with the three steps of a pre-rational, rational, and trans-rational cognition. Let's get into it. Our brain's right hemisphere not only starts the process of bringing the world into being, because it's through the right hemisphere that we experience our world. That's where most of our emotions are grounded. But also, our right brain hemisphere is more in touch with reality. And not only is the right hemisphere the first one to develop its functions until we are about 1 year old, but also the right hemisphere has an ontological supremacy over the left hemisphere as well. In what sense? The left hemisphere is a perfect tool, a perfect emissary, like McGilchrist says, to send things to for processing. But the things only have meaning, once again, when they are returned to the right hemisphere. There needs to be a process of reintegration, whereby we return to the experiential world again. An example of this is when we are learning to play a piece of music with the piano, for example. We have to take that piece of music, decompose it in small bits and pieces that by themselves have no meaning because they are little individual notes, individual keys, and they don't have a glue to keep them together. But you have to study it with patience, and then go back to the right hemisphere of your brain, and where you can reintegrate the piece, where he finally has a synthetic, reintegrated meaning again. Another analogy would be the relationship between books and life. I know that many people around BookTube are very interested in this particular relationship. So let's look at the relationship between reading and living. Life can certainly have meaning without books, but books cannot have meaning without life. So we could say that life goes into books and books go back into life. But the relationship is not equal or symmetrical. Obviously, life is much more wholesome than books. Nonetheless, what is in them not only adds to life, but genuinely goes back into life and transforms life, so that life as we live it in a world full of books is created partly by books themselves. This is not a perfect example, but it's very close to what McGilchrist means when he tries to describe this three steps process, starting from the right hemisphere, perception, the left hemisphere, processing, decomposing, analyzing, and representing reality, and then back to the right hemisphere for reintegration. So the left hemisphere could be seen, just like the book, as taking from the world as delivered by the right hemisphere, the unconsidered life, and giving life back enhanced. Now, second part of my video, the second triplet of steps. I'm going to talk about the pre-trans fallacy, which has a strong correlation with this three steps process that I just described that comes from McGilchrist's book. The pre-trans fallacy is found in the fact that people usually take an either-or stance when it comes to what is perceived as irrational. They do this by either reducing genuinely transcendent spiritual experiences to pre-rational hallucination, something that actually Freud did quite frequently, or by elevating pre-rational magical and mythical visions to trans-rational mysticism, an inclination which Jung indulged in. What does trans-rational mean? The term trans-rational describes a worldview in which rationality is included but also transcended, not repressed or dismissed. This is a very important distinction, very important distinction. Trans-rational means rationality plus something, not rationality minus something. So we have these three clear categories. Number one, pre-rational. Number two, rational. And number three, trans-rational. Let's take a quick look at them. The pre-rational is in fact irrational. For example, the pre-rational approach to spirituality is irrational because it's based on pre-rational worldviews, including the magical worldview, the belief that magic exists, the belief that individual thoughts and actions directly influence the outside world. For example, if I dance, it's gonna rain. Number two is rational. We all understand this one. The rational worldview is the modern Western world's MO, modus operandi, and it leads people to believe that they can manipulate their lives and surroundings through a deeper understanding of scientific principles and rational discourse. The rational worldview has created undeniable upsides, such as advances in technology and medicine. However, in relation to spirituality, to our inner life, to our inside, we cannot think our way into inner peace. We cannot reason ourselves into happiness and into peace. Also, very importantly, the rational or scientific point of view, and this is the reason why science is limited in itself, cannot see above itself, is limited in a hall of mirrors where it's self-contained. Number three, the trans-rational worldview is reason, which is science and rationality, plus something more. For example, Christian mysticism, but also above and beyond Christian mysticism, even just simply religion. If we think about the Divine Comedy, for example, we go back to the reason why Virgil, who is rationality incarnate, is symbolizing reason. At a certain point, he needs to give way to something else. This something else is not only faith, is a trans-rational experience. That's where real, true, good religion points to. So the trans-rational approach, just like the right hemisphere of our brain, already includes reason and potentially scientific discourse because it's already being processed by reason. And yet, it's also open to what the rational mind cannot fully explain. The problem comes when people conflate the pre-rational worldview and the trans-rational point of view. A pre-rational point of view, for example, that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, or that the Earth is flat, or anything like that, is irrational, is against reason. And that is not what Christianity is about at all. On the other hand, contemplation, love of God, prayer, worshipping, all the liturgy, all these things belong to the trans-rational worldview, because it's a worldview that has already been processed by rationality and therefore is beyond rationality. So what's the point of all this? What's the point of all these definitions and all these steps? Well, the point is that this has everything to do with the proper way of thinking, the proper way of going about our cognitive functions, our cognitive abilities, and the relationship between us and reality. So, atheism is not deep enough. It doesn't think properly about what we are and about the relationship between us and reality. To stop at rationality in order to build a worldview, to stop at only what reason can do, is to be limited in a hall of mirrors, to not even be aware of something that is outside of the limits of rationality and science, of something that we are born for, that we are built for, our brains are built for. And I agree with McGilchrist when he says that it's also a societal problem, a problem that we have in our society, an integration into the metaphorical, into the mythical, and the trans-rational world is necessary to live our life fully and to fulfill the potential that we have as human beings.